I've been wearing the Casio AE1600 for over a week now, and I've been wearing it to work out here in the oil field. And by the way, here's a view from the office. We're on a coil tubing unit. There's a mixing plant, frac tanks, got the pit vipers, the Yeti, the Ariat boots, all these things I shill for, right? I'll leave a link below if you like these pull-on style work boots by Ariat. But anyways, AE1600. You can see how soiled it got. Well, I've been wearing it and doing a lot of maintenance on equipment and swinging hammers out here. And it's a pretty good watch. $35 gives you a Casio watch that so far has stood up to the challenge. And let me just run through some of the notable features. First of all, big numbers. Let me get out my pointer pen, the Right in the Rain mini bolt action pen. But you see that these numbers are giant, right? Huge numbers. They're thick too, besides being big, right? There's some Timex watches that have large numbers, like when you measure them. But the little segments on the display, they're thin. Well, not so with the Casio AE1600. These segments are thick, okay? Look how thick these are. And then one good thing for me is that, when I have the watch on, right, I'll have my arm here on the steering wheel, right? And I'll want to see what the time is without taking my hand off the steering wheel, right? Does that make sense? And so the cool thing about the screen is that, it being big, you barely need to move your wrist to acquire the time. Now, there is kind of a sweet spot in terms of visibility that, when you're looking at it dead on, you can still read it. It's not as solid as when it's just a little bit off center, right? But then if you go too far, too much of an acute angle, you can't really make out what the segments are even saying. You see the segments, but kind of like the polarizing effect is gone and they all look filled in, right? And so there's a sweet spot now. For $35, I think the visibility is really good. If you're someone who wants the absolute best visibility at the most acute and obtuse angles, you got to get an MIP watch, right? Say the AE5600, the GBDH2000, those MIP watches by Casio G-Shock, you'll be reading them you could have it like this, you'll still be able to read the watch. But in terms of LCD, this is a fantastic looking watch. And MIP versus LCD is just the type of screen. This is an LCD screen, and it's the inexpensive type of screen. It's been around for a long, long time. Okay, so visibility is what you want. At this price point, it's hard to beat the Casio AE1600. Now, the only one that comes close, of course, is the predecessor to this one, the AE1500. Now, that one we'll compare directly head to head. In this video, I do not want to go in crazy comparing the AE1500 to the AE1600 because I don't have the AE1500 with me. Okay. Now, all right, the band. You see it on my wrist. My wrist is about 8.5 inches. All right, and it does fluctuate. Like yesterday, I was rigging up this pump. Right now, I'm on standby. Okay. Right now I'm on standby, which is why I'm making this video. But yesterday I was rigging up this pump, working up a big sweat, and when I get sweaty and I'm really active, my wrist swells up. And so I had it on the very last notch, okay? So 8.5 inches is probably the limit, depending on how tightly you like to wear your watch, how high up on your wrist. But the band is big. So if you're a big wrister, check this one out. If you have a wrist bigger than 8.5 inches, then you will probably need the AE1500 that has the extra long band, which is the one that I have. This AE1600, this band, the Casio website says it goes up to 215 millimeters all the way around, which I guess is just shy of 8.5 inches, if I remember correctly. But it's a plastic buckle, all right? And don't complain about the plastic buckle because this only retails at $35. This little tang is plastic, and you can see it's taken some dings, right? I'm wearing it. You know that when Jim Kincaid wears a watch, it's going to get roughed up. Well, yeah, that's what happened here, And I'm not ashamed of it at all. I'm hard on my stuff. But I use it, right? I don't baby anything I own. Everything I own, like take this pen, the mini bolt action pen by Right in the Rain. Look how dinged up it is. It's from usage, all right? I use stuff as intended, all right? Now, if you look at the floorboards, I got all this dirt down here. Yeah, you're going to get dirt when you're out here working, right? Well, when I get back, I sweep it out. When it's time to clean the equipment, that's what you do, okay? So when it's time to clean my watches, that's what I do. But I don't baby anything while I'm wearing it. It's supposed to be used as intended, all right? And so it's the screen scratched up, all right? Now, I'm just going to go to one point of the watch. I'm not going to say it's a weak point, but it's not a strong point, and that is the bezel is not as well protected as some other Casio watches, and it has got scratched up. Let me situate this phone and the watch in the light so that maybe you can see the scratches. But there are scratches already on the screen, and this is from a little over 1 week of usage. I think it's been 9 days. I'd have to open my calendar app and sit there and count the days. I believe that I published the unboxing video on the 26th. All right, so you can see the swirls, and you can probably see some of the scratches. And so it's gotten scratched up. Now the bumps on the bezel are at the 12 and 6 o'clock position, which leaves this whole area in between to leave the screen susceptible to bumps. And if you are someone who is absolutely furious about, the scratches, either get the AE1600 or you get a screen protector. I don't get screen protectors because I want to actually test and see how resistant the screen is to scratches, right? But if you're someone who wants to settle into one watch, doesn't want to do any test about screen scratches, get a screen protector. I'll see if there are any, and if there are, I'll put them in the link below. Now, one cool feature of the AE1600 is the light button is in the front and center. You have two LED lights at the bottom. They're amber, and it's suitable for illuminating the whole watch. Now, one thing you gotta understand is that these are like, it's a big screen, and these aren't like top of the line LEDs. All right, this is a budget watch, so it illuminates the bottom more than the top. All right, it doesn't have that electroluminescent look that the whole screen is like uniformly lit up, and it is amber. Okay, like the amber check engine light, which nope, there's no amber check engine light. I'm just joking. Anyways, the amber lights, they're amber, right? Not blue. It's like if you want blue, well, you got to pay up. You got to get a Casio G-Shock. All right, amber's the economy. All right, now I mentioned crotch earlier. I'm talking about the watch crotch. This watch crotch is on the larger side for a Casio. And again, the watch crotch is the distance between two legs. It's not a vulgar term. The AI tried to tell me it was. It's not, all right? Maybe it's an uphill battle trying to actually get a learning language model to learn, but I'm trying to teach it that crotch is a term that describes, the distance between two legs, like a tree branch is a crotch. Your elbow is a crotch, right? This area is pretty wide. So if you have like a wide wrist, I think you'll do all right with this one. Much wider than normal Casios, all right? If you wanted to get wider, you'd have to step up to a G-Shock, all right? Or get a watch whose band splays out all the way, all right? Now the light button, I mentioned the light button is front and center. This button is a dummy button. And yes, I did actually try and press it. It was like pitch dark. I couldn't even remember what watch I was wearing. I had been wearing one of the fine metallic series by G-Shock before I got this AE1600 by Casio. And the light button on most G-Shocks that don't have a front and center button is the top right. And so I was pressing it, and I was like, oh, I'm a dummy. This is a fine metal. For some reason, the light button's here. And when I pressed that, I was like, oh, wait, this does not feel like a G-Shock button. This is a Casio button. Yes, I am wearing the AE1600, and boom, I was able to turn on my light. The front and center light button's pretty cool. You don't have to like hunt around for where that light button is on the side. It's like, push here, dummy, boom, and that's what you do, the light comes on. But this button is a dummy button, all right? It's not like they put the light button front and center to give you some more functions with a fourth button. There's still 4 buttons. They just reposition one to the front. There's no 5th button. Sometimes the front and center light button means that there's 5 buttons. This is still a 4-button watch. All right, but again, retail price $35. You know, it's like, you know, they're not going to give you exactly what you want. They're always going to hold something back and make you pay up for it. All right, but I still think it's a pretty cool watch, right? I think that I like the look of it. I really like the look. I love the big numbers, and it has this square shape. Now, there was someone, I forgot his name. I called him Mr. Mathman. He was pointing out it's octagonal. It's not actually square, and that's true. Square is a shape. You know, 4 90-degree angles, 4 sides, and all 4 sides are the same length. As opposed to a rectangle, doesn't have that provision that all 4 sides have to be the same length. All right, I learned that in oh man, it must have been the 80s, right? Pretty old. But anyways, yeah, this is octagonal, technically, but still, in Casio parlance, we call it a square. I wasn't there when they started calling the G-Shock squares. That name stuck. So this is a square style as opposed to the round style of this watch's predecessor, which is the AE1600. I just realized I tapped this watch a few times with my finger. I'm supposed to tap it with my mini bolt action pen by Right in the Rain. By the way, this is a great size pen. It fits in my chest pocket as this burly clip. It's plastic, but it's really burly. And you can see it's not as big as other pens. That means it fits in your pants pocket well. And this clip is so strong. You can put it in the pooch in the front of your hoodie if you are a hoodie wearer, okay? And it writes at all different angles. I am going to put a link for it in the description. Click through and buy it if you're interested. It comes in packs of 2. Highly recommended. I really like this pen. So the AE1600, one thing that I'm going to tell you guys about it, from my experience wearing it for 1 week, is that it bumps into stuff. It sounds crazy to say, but when I have it on my wrist, for some reason I notice my arm, the watch bumping into things more so than with other watches. And this isn't like a huge watch. I have bigger watches like the King, the GXW56BB by G-Shock, all right, and the GBH2000. And I think that this is about the same size as the AE1500. But for some reason, this just feels like it's bumping into things more. And maybe it's just cognitive bias. Maybe it's me. I don't know. I'm going to do some more testing while wearing it. But it could also be that the sides are so steep. There's not a lot of taper to the sides like there is on, say, the GW6900, you know, or any of those flying saucer shaped watches. And so just my experience is like, wow, I just feel like I'm bumping into stuff more with the watch. I don't think it's bad, but I just noticed it. And so it's noteworthy. It just feels like it bumps into stuff more than some other watches. And also the screen has taken some dings because it doesn't have like a whole ton of protection like some other watches. Doesn't really bother me. You guys may have seen the shorts I published where I was working on some equipment, talking about how, you know, I can still kind of fit my hands into places while I'm working on diesel equipment. Actually, this was cryogenic equipment I was working on. But you know, like with some of the bigger watches, you have to take them off if you want to reach into somewhere tight. You know, good watches for reaching into somewhere tight are like the GA2100 or the GW9500. I think is surprisingly good for how tightly it hugs your wrist, right? This watch, it just bumps, all right? And it may not be a huge problem for you, but it's just noteworthy for me, so I just wanted to pass along that information, okay? Now, accidental button presses. When you're in the main time screen, this start button will switch you between 24-hour time and just a regular AM/PM. And I keep it on military time, and there are some times I've looked down at my watch and it's been changed. So this button does get pressed accidentally. So maybe it's actually a good thing that this is a dummy button, because, you know, if it did actually do something, it would be doing it a lot, because you have on your wrist, the flexation, you know, can bump the button, right? So regular Casio watches don't have as much button protection as the G-Shocks. The G-Shocks have, it's designed so that there's no accidental button pressing, right? And there's these bumps will protect the buttons from the incidental blows, but they don't really protect it from as much from accidental presses, since these buttons stand so far proud from the case. All right. And so as far as the modes go, you have 5 alarms, and I think I only have one set, so I have it set at midnight, so I can take my midnight readings. And you also have a timer that goes to 24 hours, which I think is good. And you have a stopwatch. I've used this a bunch of times because I'll have to when I'm operating equipment, I'll have to pump for I have to keep track of how long I've been pumping, so I can just multiply the time by the rate, double check the equipment and the straps on the tank and everything. All right. Now, one problem, it may bother some of you gentlemen, but when you're on the stopwatch, you can't see what time it is. All right. Some G-Shock watches will show you in the corner the time. In fact, some Casio watches will show you that. But on this watch, they do not do that. These numbers at the top are the hundredths of a second. Now, something interesting is going to happen once this watch. Actually, it already happened. Sorry. But when you start out, it's going to show you the fractions of a second, seconds, and minutes, and then after it goes past 1 minute, I think it changes. Right? You can see the seconds are down here. I don't know. I read that. I forgot exactly what it was. And then you have a second time zone. You have to set the second time zone just like you would the regular time. All right. Now, I actually do not like the second time zone because it's happened before when you have the second time zone up and you don't realize it and you're reading the wrong time and it can like make you late or whatever, which could be a problem. So a lot of times I just set the second time zone for the exact same time as the main time zone. This doesn't have a world time where you set the watch and then adjust your time zone to see what time it is in different time zones. There are a number of other watches that do that, including my dad's watch. I did a review of my dad's watch. I don't know how many of you guys saw that, but Jim Kincaid Sr. was down, and then he brought his Seiko GMT watch that he bought in Vietnam, and we're looking at that one. So that one, you can tell you what time it is in countries that don't exist anymore. That's how old the watch is. Anyways, I think it's a pretty cool watch, the AE1600. And, I'll make it, like I said, I'll make a comparison.